Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced, and you're watching this video or listening to this audio on one of my podcasts. But what I want to talk about today is the idea of cultural nullification. Okay, so you hear different strategies for dealing with authoritarianism, with basically extensions of authority that kind of really get into aspects of our lives that it shouldn't really be into. Because at the end of the day, like, we're individuals who have rights. You know, you hear the approach of, let's say, like agorism, where you kind of create black markets to sort of exit authority. Just say, hey, we're going to operate without you. You hear about nullification, where you sit there and say, hey, at every step of the legal process, you can make legal choices, or essentially like a jury can nullify a court decision that violates people's rights, even regardless of the circumstances, or a state can ignore a federal law, or and vice versa. Bottom line is that you can nullify, you can ignore things when it violates individual rights. What I want to talk about is sort of that idea, but at a cultural level. Okay, cultural nullification, which is kind of somewhere in between agorism, sort of exiting into black market. So this is not a full economic withdrawal, and it's not a full legal withdrawal either, in the sense where the big fight is on the legal front, the fight is on the cultural front, where the idea is where you have a culture where individual rights and what we believe and the sort of the privileges and rights that we afford to each other are inherent in our culture, so that regardless of what the laws are, the laws don't have any bite, because we don't want to enforce bad rules on each other. We ignore bad institutions, and we just culturally decide to cooperate in a particular way. Now, to create that kind of culture, we have to be better to each other. So we have to choose to be kind, to be forgiving, because that creates sort of the reciprocity, the goodwill towards each other that allows us to ignore oppressive laws or circumvent sort of institutions that might be oppressive. Okay, we can just act like those institutions don't exist and take all the power from them, but it does kind of require us to sort of choose to be on the same page. And doesn't necessarily mean we have to agree on every issue or everything, but it's more like, hey, we're choosing to coexist and we're choosing to acknowledge that regardless of our differences, we all have these rights and we all are afforded these considerations. So by creating that cultural nullification, by fostering that culture where we care for each other voluntarily, and we will ignore institutions that hurt each other, I think that creates an avenue where you don't have to ask for permission. You don't need to win any particular election. You don't need to have, any particular, be at the end of any particular market choice. It's just dealing with how we deal with each other one-on-one. And, I think it's something we're thinking about when you think about your arsenal of tools for how to preserve individual rights, how to fight for individual rights. That yes, you have all these other mechanisms of, hey, elect the right people to overturn or prevent bad laws. Nullification, to just sit there and say from using different legal institutions to just erode the power of those bad laws at the legal institutional level, or agorism, where you use economic power and do an economic exit. But then you have cultural nullification, where you create a more community-based culture that protects each other's rights, not because of any particular institution, but because there's reciprocity deeply embedded in the culture, where we want to protect each other's rights because we have that goodwill, we have that reciprocity baked in, because we value consent. So hopefully you guys found this concept something to kind of help you think in a different way about how you think about how you can affect change in the world. Of course, there's also the whole idea of aspiration that I've talked about before, where just by living your best life, people will aspire to your values. So if you value individual liberty and live a very good life and be a very good person, people will aspire to those values. This is kind of in line with that. But again, this is more about creating more of a cultural moment that is anti-authoritarianism, but in a kinder, gentler way, which I think is going to be more effective, because at the end of the day, if we hate each other, people who hate each other will always kind of want to control each other. So fostering that environment where there's enough tolerance and peace that you can have that sort of cultural nullification of bad institutions, regardless of what bad institutions exist. So my name is Alex Merced from alexmerced.com. Subscribe to my podcast, subscribe on YouTube. I'm all over the place. Follow me on Twitter. For my libertarian stuff, follow the Twitter handle @Loveitarian. But otherwise, have a great day and enjoy. I'll see you all on the next one.